The biggest criticism about the worldwide migrant and refugee crisis is that enough isn't being done. All things being equal, those that are leaving their countries would actually prefer to return home. Plus, a Japanese court rules in favor of Koreans, and China blasts the Dalai Lama. These stories are coming up next. This is the Asia Brief. Good morning, everyone. Steve Miller here on this Wednesday, the 9th of September, that all-important hump day. Thank you so much for joining me. Horrific tales of migrants and refugees have filled the headlines for months. Today, we begin with a story of how one is preparing to go home. Rohingya Muslims are a persecuted group from Myanmar that caught the world's eye earlier this year when thousands were stranded off the coast of Thailand. Like most individuals that are forced to flee their homes, they have a desire to return. Now it appears that for one refugee, that dream may become a reality. Kim Sarin, head of Cambodia's Interior Ministry's refugee program, told reporters Monday a refugee had contacted the Myanmar embassy with a request to return home. Once the embassy makes an official announcement, Cambodia will issue an exit visa, he said, adding the refugee will be able to leave later to his motherland through a resettlement deal with Australia. Sarah noted the refugee's decision would not impact the broader agreement between Cambodia and Australia to bring in more refugees currently held on the South Pacific island of Nauru. Cambodia received more than $40 million in aid from Australia for their part in the resettlement deal, something that's been widely criticized in international circles for violating international asylum tenets. The United Nations Refugee Agency says it undermines the principles of the Refugee Convention to which both nations are a signatory. Under the controversial deal, Australia agreed to pay all resettlement costs for a year. Those who accept the transfer from Nauru will receive thousands of dollars in cash, language and skill training, and health insurance. Now look, this deal amounts to shuffling people around and does nothing to alleviate the real problem. When one throws cash, healthcare, and other benefits at people who are destitute, it sounds like a good idea, and in many cases, it is. But when you end up returning them to an abusive location, it's not. We must correct the problem at the source. One of the long-standing disputes between South Korea and Japan has been the issue of compensation of victims that suffered under the peninsular occupation between 1910 and 1945. While many victims find the road to further compensation blocked by the 1965 bilateral agreement between Seoul and Tokyo, Japanese courts have recently sided with a South Korean man and ordered the Osaka prefecture to pay. Lee Hong-hyun is the son of a Korean victim of the 1945 atomic bombings and was reportedly exposed to radiation in his mother's womb. He and the surviving family members of two other South Korean victims of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bombings sued in Japanese court for medical costs, even though they are living outside of Japan. Lower courts ruled in favor of Lee, and the case was sent to Japan's top court. Tuesday, the court sent a clear message by voting unanimously in favor of Lee, saying, quote, "It's difficult for overseas victims to visit Japan for medical service. It is against the aim of law not to cover full medical costs for them." End quote. This is the first time a Japanese court has ordered the payment of full benefits to those not living in Japan, and it could affect other legal proceedings. It was the right thing to do, and it's great to see the court respond in the manner in which it did. The Tibet Autonomous Region celebrated Tuesday, marking the 50th anniversary of its founding. However, China took the opportunity to criticize the Dalai Lama, the exiled spiritual leader who fled in 1959 after a failed uprising. Yu Zhengsheng, in charge of religious groups and ethnic minorities and ranks fourth in the ruling Communist Party, stressed the official line that the Dalai Lama is a violent separatist. Quote, "People of all ethnicities are steadfastly engaged in a struggle against separatism, continuously thwarting the Dalai clique and foreign hostile forces' splittist and sabotaged activities." End quote. Now, you said this in front of Lhasa's Grand Potala Palace, once the home of the Dalai Lama. You also urged army, police, and judicial staff in Tibet to be ready to fight a protracted battle against the clique of the 14th Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama says he is merely seeking greater autonomy for his Himalayan homeland. This year marks several anniversaries for the region, and they're not all necessarily good. First, the Dalai Lama turned 80, and he says he might be the last one. It also marks the 20th anniversary of the disappearance of a young Tibetan boy chosen by the Dalai Lama as the second highest figure in Tibetan Buddhism. However, a Chinese official said the boy, now 26, was living a normal life. The rights group Free Tibet denounced the celebrations, saying they may be dressed up in 21st century PR, but they belong to the era of Mao. Beijing may have called the entry into Tibet peaceful liberation, but make no mistake, with foreign media tightly restricted and the force of which it controls the region, it was anything but. Well, my friends, those are today's stories. Please take a moment and let me know your thoughts. I'd really like to hear from you. The Asia Brief is a special feature of the Asia News Weekly podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with your friends, and if you haven't, subscribe. Subscribing is free, and when you do, the next episode is delivered automatically to you. You can subscribe on our website, asianewsweekly.net, or in your favorite podcast application. You can also keep up with more news from the region by following Asia News Weekly on Facebook or Twitter. And if you have any comments, questions, or feedback, be sure to drop us a line. That email address is podcast@asianewsweekly.net. Thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, remember to be true to yourself and to always be awesome.